does contain some happy parts too. I just decided to read some of the more dramatic ones, but it's not all about, well, killing and that sort of thing. It does have some uplifting moments. Well, now, do y'all have any questions?
How much of it is biographical?
Well, I came from a little town in Texas, and it was a town like, I mean, you know, like all little towns in Texas, with a lot of characters in it. I have to say there's not any one character that is exactly like anybody that I know, but some of them are probably a combination. I don't think as a writer you can ever, you know, just create something out of the blue. I mean, it has to be. It's autobiographical in the sense that Angela, the oldest daughter, does become a nun, and as you read in the biography, I had studied to be a nun for about 4 years. But that's even that is not, it's not me. I mean, I'm not Angela. But I mean, there's a part, I guess there's a part of me in every one of these people, you know. Even the Mayphilia, you know, because I'm a witch.
Cecilia is Aunt Mary a little bit, right?
Cecilia is a little bit like Aunt Mary. That's my son, by the way, and he knows the story of Aunt Mary. Aunt Mary, my dad's younger sister, she did run away from home and hopped freight trains and lived in some hobo villages and
got out of Texas.
Got out of Texas, yeah. And she never came back either. And she died a couple of years ago, and I was very, very close to her. She was very. And she was a striking woman, like Cecilia is here in the book. Very.
And what about the racism? Because that sounds like a very strong theme throughout.
Well, this book takes place in 1951, and yes, racism was very strong then.
And so it was East Texas.
Well, it's any town, Texas, but primarily I think it's what I was seeing is more South Texas, a little town somewhere between San Antonio and Houston, because they do things in San Antonio and then they have events in Houston too that are talked about.
So you have very vivid memories of the race?
Well, I definitely remember segregation extremely well, yes. And as you will see in this book, Bud is, well, they all are. You know, Mayphilia is a part of that family. You know, not to give away too much, but really she's, you know, segregation in the South, well, you know, the way I remember it, it was, you know, it was you got such mixed messages. On one hand, there was a tremendous amount of concern and care, but then it was totally separate. The schools were separate, everything had to be separate. You know, I remember vividly, you know, for example, the blacks having to drink at one water fountain and go to one restroom and all of this, you know, it's just, so yeah, that was very much a part of my childhood. And then later on, you know, I was involved in the civil rights movement, you know, because I believe so strongly that I wanted to see that eradicated. And what is so ironical about all of that, you know, I used to always say, you know, when my dad's generation dies off, that's going to be the end of racism. How wrong I was. How wrong I was. Oh, I cannot believe some of the things I hear today. Trey, did you have something?
Well, as the son of an English teacher, who is the protagonist? And I have to admit, my wife's about almost done, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to. And what is the central conflict?
I don't know.
Because I keep asking her and she can't tell me.
Well,
and she's only about 50 pages away from finishing.
Well, you'll have to read it and you tell me. You know, I think there's many conflicts.
That's what I said.
There's quite a few conflicts, and that's okay, you know. maybe I taught you that there has to be one central theme.
No, To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a
But I
Mockingbird had
was
two
wrong.
conflicts. To Kill a Mockingbird had two conflicts, so I'm okay with that.
I think it's
Yeah, and
enlightenment.
my book is very much like To Kill a Mockingbird.
I think it's enlightenment versus unenlightenment.
Pardon me?
I think your central focus, which is just, you did it really beautifully, is enlightenment versus unenlightenment.
Well, thank you, David. That's good. Yeah.
Every one of your characters grew.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I haven't read a word of it, but other than what I just heard you read, it, the English teacher in me was struck and thrown out To Kill a Mockingbird. I'll throw out some heavy names, but it was almost like it could have been a Quentin Thompson Snopes thing going on in there, Faulkner. However, your sentence structures and everything are short and Hemingway-like. Short and direct, just little blurbs of pretty good description.
Well, I taught all those guys and I stole from all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I greatly, David was the first one in one of his review he wrote, said something about William Faulkner, and of course that just, because he's my favorite. My favorite writer. Genius.
What's the difference between writing screenplays and writing novels?
Oh my goodness. Well, novels you can really develop. You know, a screenplay has to be, you have to be, you know, you have to really choose. You don't have all this description. So first of all, your whole story is dependent upon the dialogue. So you have to tell the story, you know, through the characters. And with this, I can really go into the characters' thoughts and really set the setting the way I want to set it, rather than the way a movie producer or a director might set. You know, I feel like I had a lot more freedom in a sense, but I am so glad I had those years of training as a screenwriter because it taught me how to economize on my words. You know, I can remember writing on one of the screenplays that I wrote that had actually been optioned, and when I went out to Hollywood and I was working with a director and the producers, you know, the director kept saying, "You don't need to say all this. You don't need to say all this. You know, you have to have your characters say it." But you know, there had the things that you're writing, you let the director take care of that. So, but I like talking about the sunset and the fox running across the field, and you know, those things, giving that picture. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any others?
Does it have a happy ending?
Yeah, it has a happy ending, because I am an optimist. No, there's only happy endings for me. Although I'm working on one now that I don't know is going to have a happy ending. There'll be some resolution there, I guess. Any other questions?
How long did it take you to write this?
I guess about a year and a half. And then I worked on rewrites about a year and a half. It's taken me about 3 years. By the way, I want to introduce to you my editor, Margaret Roberts, who's here on the front row. She's absolutely fantastic.
I guess I believe you for the role, but thank you.
I have to tell you, I've gotten so many compliments on this cover, and it is Margaret who found this cover for me. She went through literally thousands of pictures on the internet, and she found this one because I had come up a week, I kept thinking I wanted to get a quote from the book as for the title, and when I came up with that, then she literally looked and looked and looked and found this picture, and found it where we could get it at a place for a pretty good price. I'm very
We kind of
grateful.
worked with it. It didn't look like that originally.
No,
It
that's
was
right.
part, we won't reveal the source, but it was part of a much different scene.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It really is,
Mhm.
it's great. I love
Well, the
way-
whole
I
woman,
love the black and white against the green.
yeah. And this is kind of a color from that era, you know, the,
And it is a picture from 1951.
yeah, this picture was taken in 1951, the year that the book takes place, so. But thanks to Margaret for that, too. And she's a wonderful editor. That's all I can say. She's just wonderful.
I was with you when you were struggling about the title.
Yes.
And when you read that last thing, I got goosebumps on my arms.
Yeah.
When you said, "Oh, Mama, you paint like I used to dance."
Mhm.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah. No. Yes.
What was your motivation to go to like 1951 and deal with the small town thing rather than write something else?
Gee, I don't know. That's a good question. You know, how do stories get started? I'm trying to remember back when, you know, this story started formulating in my mind. I don't know. I had the story, I had this idea, you know, if you notice this book is written for my mother. And in a lot of ways, Grace is like my mother in this book. And I don't know, you know, just in some ways, not totally, but I don't know, I just, you know, back to my childhood, there was a lot, you know, some nostalgia around that. You know, growing up in this small town that I too ran away from. I didn't hop a freight, but I did get away from it. There were a lot of things that, I think when you come from a place like that, you have a lot of love-hate feelings, you know. There was so much about it that I loved, which I try to put in this book. And then there was so much about it that I hated, you know, like the racism and, you know, the small-mindedness. And, you know, having grown up as a Catholic and having the restraints of, you know, of the church, that was something else that was, you know, because, you know, that was a big thing. It was to break away from the church. That was a big thing for me in my life. So.
I remember I was a Catholic, and the first time I went with some friends to their church, which was a Baptist church, I realized that because the nuns had told me so, I was now going to heaven. Yeah. And so then I didn't have to worry about it anymore.
Well, just to give you an example of how strong the brainwashing was for me, I was in college and I was going back and forth between, you know, what I was going to do. I was reading all kinds of enlightening books, and one Sunday morning I got up and I thought, I am not going to Mass today. And of course I had been taught ever since I was a small child that if I didn't go to Mass on Sunday, that was a mortal sin and I would go to hell. And there was a lot of this, you know, superstition there. And I remember sitting in the apartment and I looked at the clock and Mass was starting and I was scared to death. I thought, any moment I'm going to be struck dead. I mean, really, it sounds absurd. Mentally, I didn't believe it, but there was that fear there, you know. Emotionally, I did believe it, I guess. And so I decided, oh, I can't do this. So I just got up and I started cleaning the apartment, you know, and washing dishes in my usual way, you know. I write most of my books, by the way, when I'm cleaning the floor. But anyway, I looked up at the clock and it was 30 minutes past. Mass was over. And I stopped and went, oh my God, I'm still alive. Everything is okay. I haven't been struck down, you know. And that was it. It was like I broke it right there. I broke that superstition. I broke that, whatever it was that kept me bound, and I never again went back. Never again relapsed, or whatever. Whatever you want to call it. And if there are any practicing Catholics in here, I just hope I don't offend you in any way. It's,
You had a question?
She had a question.
okay, where?
I was just going to say I really loved the characters and the story.
Oh, you read?
And I did speak with my mother, who's been also reading the book, and she said, that is just how it was. Because she was Catholic and grew up in a small town. And the way that she was able, she feels like she's able to just go right into the story and
Yeah,
feel,
yeah,
understand what was going on with it.
yeah.
So
That's good. Thank you so much, Teresa. I do know that the church has changed for the better, and it's not quite as severe as it was back then.
I have a friend who teaches in the Heartland, Topi, Lynn Scotty, you know her. She says perfect for her senior high school young women. They come from the people you're writing about.
Even now?
Yeah, that's why I think the book is so valuable. There are just an awful lot of people in this country that are exactly like the people you're describing. And none of the the only people that I know of that I've read that write about men or women of that period are men. This is the first book I've written. Willa Cather writes about women from a different part of the country, but I haven't read any book that's from a woman's point of view in this part of the country. And there are an awful lot of people that are still dealing with all this stuff you write about. It's as contemporary as it can be. And she wants it. She's getting it in the school library.
Oh, well, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, yeah, I think that these, these issues in life, like you can read something from the 17th century, and there can be issues there that were, problems then that are as prevalent today. It's amazing how, there are some things that just keep going in every generation. We may not be washing our clothes by hand, but we're still worrying over, I don't know, some kind of belief or something we've been taught.
And the way mothers and daughters are interacting with each other.
Yes.
I mean, it's just so real. I mean, it's just very real and very accessible in a way that reaches people.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm really glad to have people who've already read the book here.
That's a shot at me.
Helping me along. Bye, Teresa. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
And as a man, I mean, I'm fascinated. I really feel I've learned a lot.
Good. Did you hear that, Shula? He learned a lot. He's learned a lot. So, any other questions or comments or? Okay, now I will go back to the table and I will sign. Sign until my hand drops off.